Hello, today I'm going to explain relative clauses. Let's start with a situation in which we have a library and someone who says, "That is the library where I spend most of the time reading the books that I like the most." What is this person doing? In this case, he is describing or identifying the place where he spends most of the time. Moreover, he is describing the books. In this case, he is using relative clauses introduced by a relative adverb and a relative pronoun. So why do we use relative clauses? We use relative clauses to identify or describe the person, place, or thing in the main clause. Let's have a look at an example. This is the house that cost me a lot of money. That cost me a lot of money, which is in blue, is the relative clause because it defines the information which is in the main clause and specifically the house. How are relative clauses introduced? Relative clauses are introduced by relative pronouns and relative adverbs. Let's focus on relative pronouns. We have three types of relative pronouns: who and that, which refer to people; which and that, which refer to objects and animals; whose, which is used with people, animals, and objects to show possession instead of a possessive adjective. We use who or that to refer to people. Example: the woman who or that is sitting next to me is my aunt. In this case, who or that identifies the woman. Who is this woman? And we can use who or that in the same way. Let's go on with which and that refer to objects and animals. Example: the book which or that I bought yesterday has a gripping plot. Which or that are used in the same way, and they refer to an object, in this case to the book. They identify the book. Example with whose: that is the man whose son is my teacher. In this case, whose shows possession, and it refers to the man. Now I'm going to deal with some notes. Who, which, and that can be omitted when they are the object of the relative clause. That is, when there is a noun or a subject pronoun between the relative pronoun and the verb. Example: the suitcase which that I bought is too small. First of all, which and that are used in the same way, and they identify the suitcase. They are put in brackets because they can be omitted. Why? Because they are used as the object of the relative clause. In this case, as we see, the subject pronoun is between a relative pronoun and the verb. Who, which, and that, on the other hand, are not omitted when they are the subject of relative clause now. Example: the woman who is in front of the school is the principal. So who identifies the woman? So the noun, which is next to it. But in this case, the relative pronoun who is followed by a verb, and it is the subject of this verb. That is why we cannot omit it. Moreover, whose is never omitted. Example: the students whose essays are the best are going to be part of the competition. In this case, I cannot omit whose. Let's turn to that. That can be used instead of who, whom, or which, but is never used after commas or prepositions. Let's have a look at two examples. Miriam is the one who or that suggested going to the beach. As we see, there are no commas in here, and we can use either who or that. Miriam, who is 30 years old, is going to get married this summer. As we see, there are commas, and there is a comma before who. In this case, I can't use that. That is not used after commas or prepositions. Now let's focus on relative adverbs. Which are relative adverbs? The relative adverbs are where, why, and when. Where is used to refer to places. Why is used to give reasons. When is used to refer to a time. Examples. The hotel where we spent our holidays is demolished. Where refers to the place. This is the reason why she does not want to come to school. Why refers to the reason. I do not remember the time when I saw her for the first time. When refers to the time. The last topic to be discussed is on defining and non-defining relative clauses. What is a defining relative clause? A defining relative clause gives necessary information essential to the meaning of a main sentence. It is not put into commas, and it is introduced with the relative pronouns and relative adverbs. The relative pronoun can be omitted when it is the object of the relative clause. Example, the man who gave us the map is a tour guide. Who gave us the map is the relative clause. In this case, it gives necessary information essential to the meaning of the main sentence, because we can't say the man is a tour guide. So, this information is essential to the meaning, and it is not put into commas, and it is introduced with the relative pronoun who. In this case, who is also the subject of the relative clause, that's why I cannot omit it. The other example, the book which I gave to you is a bestseller, as we see which is put into brackets, because it can be omitted, because it's the object of the relative clause, because we have a subject pronoun, because the relative pronoun, and the verb. Let's go on with non-defining relative clauses now. What is a non-defining relative clause? Non-defining relative clause gives extra information and it is not essential to the meaning of the main sentence. It is put in commas and is introduced with who, whom, which, whose, where, or when, and it is also omitted. Whereas the relative pronoun cannot be omitted. Example, Saranda, where we spent our holidays, is an amazing place. Where we spent our holidays is a relative clause. And, as we see, it is put into commas because it gives extra information and it can also be omitted. Whereas, where cannot be omitted because it's a relative pronoun. When using where or when, we do not need a preposition. Example, the restaurant where we usually have dinner is next to our house. That's the correct one. In this case, where identifies the restaurant, the place. The restaurant where we usually have dinner in is next to our house. In this case, we cannot use in, so the preposition with the relative adverb. We usually avoid using prepositions before relative pronouns. Example, the waiter to whom we gave our order was rude. This one is formal. In this case, we use preposition before the relative pronoun. The next one is less usual. The waiter who or that we gave our order to was rude. The next one is the one that we use in everyday language. The waiter we gave our order to was rude. and that's the correct one.